I think we're live. What's happening, brother? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. Doing great. Glad to be back in the saddle. Spent last week in Georgia. I had to spend some time with a client out there and got a major undertaking going on, but it was definitely successful. So it was nice to get that taken care of and get back home. What's going on your side?
Nothing much. Just getting this week of motivation and mindset started.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it was great, man. I love when we kind of get together and try to plan. That's the word of the day. Plan what we want to talk about, and something that's been definitely coming up in my business life all the time, and in my personal life is planning.
Yeah.
Right, and you think about planning, and I've got a good friend, Steve Rosenberg. He's a pilot, right, and Steve does a lot of stuff. You may have seen him online, and one thing Steve talks about a lot is you board one of his planes. He works for United, and what happens if you don't have a flight plan? You get in the plane, you turn the motor on, and you're trying to get from Houston to Hawaii, but how do you get there? And I tell you what started to go through my mind was, he even at the earliest days, we start to teach our kids about planning. Right. I can remember my oldest son, James III, and something was going on at his school, and he came to the conclusion that he wanted to bake a cake to take to school. And I was like, well, do you know how to bake a cake? And he was like, well, no, I don't. So what we did was we got that box and we flipped it over, and it had a plan. Right. And it had a plan. And what I was telling him is that he's like, well, I don't know how to cook. I'm only 10. Why are you asking? I said, if you just follow this plan, there's a reasonable expectation that when we get to the end, you're going to have a cake. But I don't know how to cook. Well, you don't have to know how to cook. Get a bowl. Now, what does it say do next? Get 2 eggs. Okay, get 2 eggs. Crack, crack. What next? Get a cup of milk. Okay, go get a cup of milk. Well, if you start thinking about it, the earliest stages, we start to learn about planning, right? And, what I wrote in here today was failing to plan is like planning to fail. Yeah. And, that's so true. I think about in business, when I started thinking about starting TMC, I went to the bank, and I went to some of my mentors, and I went to one of my old bosses, and I went online, and everywhere that I went, it said, develop your business plan. No. What's a business plan? What do you want to do? What are you going to call yourself? What are you going to sell? What's your product and service? How you register it? And, a business plan will actually go all the way out to the point of, okay, now I've run my business for 10 years and I want to sell it. So, you plan with the end in mind. You begin with the end in mind. So from a professional perspective, the plan is critical. So, that's really the side that I like to take. But really, I know you do a good job of talking about the personal side of planning. And I'm probably going to take some notes this week because I've been doing a terrible job of it on the personal side. So let me kick it over to you.
I think they run parallel. I mean, I think that there are some people who subscribe to the notion that they just kind of want to see what life brings them. I'll just, if it's in his will, if the universe provides,
right.
If, take one day at a time, let's just see what happens, fly by the seat of my pants. Like, there's some people who approach life in that respect. And so you take the end in mind, like you're saying with business. If you're willing to subscribe to life that way, then you have to subscribe to life that way. It's going to see what happens.
Right.
Like, there's not a set destination. There's not a set goal you're working towards. There's not a finish line. It's just every day is let's just see. So if that's the approach, then that needs to be the quote unquote expectation.
Yeah. But you also have to be willing to take what goes along with that.
That's what I'm saying. So it's got to be, if I'm going to say I'm just going to see what happens, then I'm every day is just seeing what happens. Like I said, there's no benchmark, there's no finish line, there's no, just every day is an adventure, and let's just see what happens in a 24-hour period. But if you have different results you want, if you want to be married and you want to have a family and you want to have consistent income, you want to have stability, that's going to require a plan and a system, and a way of doing things. And so I think for a lot of people on the personal side is that like in relationships, there's a lot of people who are together who never planned on being together and didn't think we'd be together this long.
Right.
Like we met through a mutual friend or at work, we started hanging out, folks started hooking up, somebody's lease ran out.
Now we living together.
So now we living together. Fast forward that a few months, somebody pregnant. Now we got kids. And at no point did we actually make a plan to be together and build this family.
You know what else I think happens? You find yourself looking in the mirror saying, how did I even get here? It was just by chance. It's like being in a boat with no sail, no motor. You just out there floating. And all of a sudden you look up and you 3 miles from the dock. And you've just floated out. No plan. So, but let me ask you this. So you've been in it. Is it ever too late to make a plan?
Not at all. So the same way that if you are out there drifting, because that's ultimately what's happening, you just out there drifting and decide, I don't want to drift anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted, there's a destination I want to get to now. There's a way, there's a consistency that I want to see happening. There's some stability I'd like to be present.
Right.
So then it starts with assessing where you are. Like, does this raft have a sail? Like addressing what you have in the moment and working with that.
Yeah.
And then deciding, okay, what is it that I want? What is it I want this to look like? Okay, I don't want this, we just kind of hanging out. Okay, I want to get married.
Yeah.
Like I'm cool with just what are you? You know us.
Yeah.
Like if it's now, it's like no. Okay, so now I need to start putting some things in place, some timetables, some structure. Okay, I don't want to just be working random jobs. I want a career now.
Yeah. Some of the things that I find is so. When I thought about leaving corporate America, it's been going 11, 12 years ago, to be an entrepreneur. My plan was to start a business and generate enough income to not lose my house and to make sure my kids could still eat and go to school and things like that. Now that I'm in my mid 50s and I'm kind of thinking about it. So now I'm at a point, and a couple of weeks ago, we talk about the pivot, right? So the way that I run my business now is, I don't know that I want to do this for the next 30 years of life. Should I be blessed to have that many left? So I start thinking about exit strategies. Yeah. And as I start thinking about exit strategies, I start thinking, okay, how can I exit? Well, the most profitable way for me to exit is to sell my business, right? I've run it. I've got a great customer base. I've got a great reputation in the market. I'm in several different regions of the United States. So now the day-to-day, I've got a team that manages it, but my focus and what really has become my plan for my own business is, should I decide to sell it, have I put the processes and procedures in place so that this will be attractive? So my point is, my plan, I'm looking at the calendar from 2014, 2013, it's very different than what my plan is in 2023.
Yeah.
I think what happens that makes it difficult is that some of the ways that we did things have to change, right? And I'm intentionally going to dovetail this into the personal, right? The non-business side. But things that were acceptable when we were operating to operate are not necessarily going to be acceptable when we're operating to sell. You're right. When I'm thinking about exit strategy, right? So the way we market, the way that on every big deal, it was James Morris showing up in a navy blue suit and a white shirt and a red tie, and me going in closing every deal because I'm here. And if you choose TMC, you get me.
Yeah.
Well, what I've learned is as I've thought about, and again, I'm not leaving right now, no one should panic. But as I think about exit strategies, the last thing a buyer wants is for James Morris to be the only reason that the engine runs.
Yeah.
They want it to be, we needed to run without you. Because when we buy you, we don't need you hanging around the office. We need you going fishing.
Yeah.
And so now you start getting up with, you start coming up with things that are no longer acceptable. We start doing things a little bit different. I've had to hire salespeople instead of being a super sales guy. I've had to hire people that can go do assessments and business reviews versus me being Mr. Everything to everybody. And, when we interviewed our customers, out of 17 customers, we had 10 customers say, well, James, you're the secret sauce. You're really, why we chose TMC as a supplier. So one of the challenges that I'm going through is the replan, right? The plan has changed, the pivot, so, I know on the relationship side, sometimes you may enter a relationship without a plan.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where, like you say, we may be living in the same house, now, we might be raising a child together. We might be, so now we need to make a plan. So what's that plan going to be? It's got to be a plan for success, right? Well, why else would you? So talk to me a little bit about, kind of the pivot, right? Let's talk about, we've been in this thing for so long, but now we need a new plan because the old plan don't work no more.
Yeah. So when you say you take the group who's, early 20s, just figuring it out, just starting to get together, got small children, the plan is at that stage, a lot of times for a lot of folks is one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Like we got kids, we got bills, we got this and that. Now, okay, the kids are leaving the house soon.
Yeah.
You may have one or two out the door and another one on the way out. The day-to-day life doesn't look, you're not taking anybody to practice anymore.
Right.
There's no more little league. There's no more cheerleading. There's no more. Okay. So we're about to have a lot more free time than we've ever had since we've been together.
Yeah.
So what are we going to be doing? You may be thinking retirement's coming soon. You may be thinking okay, so the way we've just been going at this for 5, 10, 15 years, none of that's going to be a reality anymore in the very near future. So what is it we want to start doing? What do we want life to look like? So this is if you're a we, but if you're an I, so if you've been living your life by yourself a particular way and you're saying, I'm done with what I've been doing. I want to fall back and work less. I fell back for too long. Now I got to buckle down. Like whatever your individual situation is, when you make that decision of saying, I don't want things to be the way that they currently are, and I want to start making some changes. It's about having that real conversation with, where am I? Where was I? And where is it that I want to be?
Yeah.
And so if I wasn't serious about my career throughout my entire 20s and 30s, and now you're turning 40 and you got 2 wooden nickels to rub together and you start thinking about the back end.
Yeah.
Okay. Being this professional fry cook for the last 15 years, though it was fun, I gotta start getting serious about a business. Okay. What are my skill sets? What are the things I need to do? Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to reach out to some relationships I've had? Like, what do I need to start doing to make a shift and to actually put something into place? You could eat badly your entire life,
sure,
and then all of a sudden you want a 6-pack. It's going to require a plan.
Absolutely.
You just can't stay with what you were doing with the information you previously had. You're going to need to get some info and to put some structure in place.
Yeah, I agree, 1,000%. I tell you what I think about when I was, listening to you. I met this, wonderful lady in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, and I was out there for an event, and she was part of the group that I was in, and she's, right on the cusp of retirement. She's had a great career, and she's winding down, but she started to kind of talk to me a little bit about how things change over the years. And she's been married for many years, and she's always worked a full-time job. Her husband drives trucks, so he's always out on the road. And their plan was, we're going to get married, we're going to make each other happy, we're going to have a wonderful life, and we're going to ride this thing all the way out to the cemetery gates. And she told a great story, but as she kind of got into the story and I saw her face change a little bit, she said, but my husband, who's been driving trucks for the last 40 years and whatever it is, just retired. Yeah. And so now, for the first time in our entire marriage, he's home every day. I used to get 5 or 6 days to miss him, and then he comes home and it's love fest and we having a blast. And now, and actually what she told me was, and she's been married a long time, but what she told me was, about her second year of marriage, she thought about getting a divorce because he was driving her nuts. He was just driving her bonkers, right? And then he started driving and the relationship got a lot better. Yeah. So here we are 40 years later. She told me, now I remember why I almost divorced him 40 years ago, because the same thing he was doing then, but her being a little bit older, she's a little bit more tolerant. Yeah. But the anxiety that she's going through is this new feeling is going to be multiplied when she retires. Yes. Because right now she's still working, but he's home full time. Imagine what's going to happen when she retires. Now they're both sitting up in there looking at each other saying, every time you cluck your teeth, I just want to throw a lamp at you. And so we talked about that a little bit. And, they say those that can't play, teach and coach. So, I'm the last person to give relationship advice, but, we started talking about, so what's the new plan? What are you guys going to do different? Because, you ain't going to get divorced at 70, right? So how do you figure it out? How do you not be miserable for the next 20 years of your life? So it's pretty interesting. And, again, we're talking about planning, but I just don't want to understate the importance of sometimes when you get into a plan, you have to change it. Sometimes you have to scrap your plans and start over.
Yeah. So there's a phrase when you run in track, most track coaches will tell you that you don't run to the tape, you run through the tape.
Yes. Yes.
So most plans have people running to the tape. There's a definitive finish line and it's a halt.
Yes.
As opposed to run through the tape, which is in transition.
Correct. Full momentum.
Yes. And so you're just, once you break through the tape, you then transition into the next phase of what you're doing. Where a lot of times is the plan is, well, once you hit the tape, there's nothing, I only thought about breaking the tape. So if you're in the sense of where, so an example with those two people, he's retired, but she's still working. So they haven't hit the tape yet.
Right.
Because she's thinking about, what about when we were both home? Okay, so this is the part where it's like, okay, what's the through the tape? So when I retire, am I transitioning into, shoot, man, for all I know, she can be anything from a knitting to a motorcycle club.
Right.
Am I transitioning from this work schedule that I have into this church community group?
Yeah.
Like we need X amount of hours apart to miss each other. So rather than wait till I have 0 hours of obligation, wait till the day I retire. Now we both have nowhere to be. What's the transition into something else that we can still keep a certain amount of time of individual interest so we're not driving each other crazy?
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't get. And, I think a lot of times you can love a person to death, but you need time to yourself. Right. Yes. And that's probably an area, where I take some criticism because, I can be as needy as the next person, but I'm really that type of guy that, I need a couple hours myself every day just for me time, right? I need to kind of replenish. But I have another question that I want to throw at you. I think this is great dialogue, man. I love when we do this. So, we talk about the importance of a plan. And I know you very well. I know your career, and I know some of the goals you set. You do a great job of executing your plans. And I appreciate that about you. I think it's kind of hereditary. I look at our brothers and sisters, and I think they do a great job of executing plans, right? And I'm proud of the whole brood of us. But how important, in your opinion? And I'll talk a little bit on the business side when you finish. How important is it to communicate your plan, right? How important is it to let everybody know what your plan is versus I have a plan and I get up every day executing the plan. Yeah. And that's why we're still here. That's why we're still successful. That's why we're winning. Yeah. But tell me, in your opinion, because that's a component that tends to escape me a bit. So I want to hear your thoughts on not just, okay, we built a plan, but let's talk about communicating the plan. What are your thoughts?
So the communication to me would be with all those who the plan affects.
The stakeholders.
Yeah. So if we're talking about in the dynamic of our family or for our social circle or whomever, like if what my plan in place is includes you, and I'm just doing all these things over here and I don't communicate them to you, that can be problematic. So especially if I need your buy-in, I need your 100% buy-in, but I'm not giving you a reason to stay bought in.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, well, just trust me.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving you anything to trust other than, say, maybe my track record or something like.
Right.
I need you dialed in, even though I'm not dialing you in.
Yeah.
So that could be an issue. Number two, when we stay in our own head, we're only regurgitating information that we already know. So when we go outside of ourselves, sometimes you could be a sounding board. Like I would do this thing whenever I had projects. I would have the guys. I would say there was a show that came on years ago, a show called House. It was the doctor.
Yeah.
He was like genius doc. He had the group of people in. They never had the right answer, but he would say, just throw answers at me. I would do that with the guys. I said, just suggestions. I said, I just need to hear you talk, and that will spark something which will send me in the direction that I need. But I can't seem to figure it out just in my head. So I just need to hear, even if I don't want the idea, I don't think the idea is any good, something in what you say will trigger something in my brain that I can't get by myself.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the plan and talk about it to somebody else, sometimes they can see the glitches that we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can see that when they hear it back, it's like, wait a minute, there seems to be a disconnect.
Yeah.
That we don't see with the tunnel vision because we are trying to execute the way we see it in our brain. So sometimes including the other person, the affected other person. Now, I think that's different than just telling the world what you're going to do and I'm going to do this. Right. I think that's different. But I mean, we're talking to the affected people, communicating that, because that's actually a team.
I like that, and I think what I've done, or not I know what I've done is in my business as we've taken on new verticals, right? And so a year after I started the staffing company, I acquired another firm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that acquisition was going to take up a lot of my time. It was a totally different business vertical. So I remember pulling my staff in, my leadership team, and saying, okay, I'm buying another company. It's totally different than what we do, but it's going to be just as intensive. And we sat down and we got on the whiteboard and we scoped out, okay, I'm going to need to be in Indiana for the next 3 months while we do the integration. So Barbara, I need you working on this. Colleen, I need you working on that. Lene, I need you to do that. And we got in a huddle and we said, 1, 2, 3, break. And everybody went off. and we executed to the plan. I think where I have fallen short, and I'll blame it on the way I grew up and the way my folks were, because I tend to be such a bit of a workaholic and somewhat of a control freak in the office, or so I've been told I am. What has happened on the personal side, sometimes with my kids, sometimes in relationships, with in friendships, you tend to get this. I'm executing, right? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right? I bring the money home, I pay the bills, I make sure we have food in the fridge. I'm working on making things better. I'm working on keeping us stronger. I'm present, but we're not talking about it. And in the old school days, they say, "Well, why?" And I say, "Because I said so."
Yeah.
Do just trust that I'm taking care of business, and maybe it's, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's arrogance. I don't know if it's just I'm already exhausted. I'm on the automatic pilot. I'm gonna do the right things. So trust me. But as I listen to, I like when you say, when you just keep it in your head, you're only regurgitating what you already know.
Yeah.
One thing I love about this platform is we're really bouncing ideas off. I've had plans, and I'm the type where I'm going out just executing them.
Yeah.
I'm just out there executing the plan, but maybe my teammates don't know. I can remember playing football, and I would see something, and I might be back at quarterback, and I could see something. So when they snap me the ball, instead of throwing that pass that everybody's blocking for, I take it and run.
Yeah.
And it may be a big successful play, but everybody's looking around saying, "What the heck did you just do that? That wasn't the plan." Yeah, we were successful, but you're doing something different.
Yeah,
and it keeps everybody unsettled.
So there's a difference between, so the important part to watch when it pertains to start discussing execution is that sometimes we'll use the premise that the ends justify the means, and the execution is attached to the I. So if we're a team, if we're a partnership, I can say in my mind, I came up with a way to make $100,000.
Okay.
I put a plan together that made $100,000. I didn't talk to you about that. The conversation I had with you, we were going to get 50. I saw something, and I broke team to go down my own idea, and my own idea benefited more than the plan we had together.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, the end justified the means of not communicating to you the differences that I wanted to make. And that can become problematic, because then it will lean on, see, that's why I don't need to talk to you. See, that's why I can do this by myself.
Right.
See, that's why I don't need to do the checks and balances. I'm going to lean on my instincts. I'm going to trust my gut, and I'm fine. When you're an individual, that's fine. But that fundamentally tears apart the dynamic of a team, of a partnership.
Yeah.
And so when you discredit the other person's value and their ability, see, when you came up with the original plan where it was 50, then you saw something that got you 100. Had you then taken the information that got you to 100 back to the person that you got 50, you may have ended up being able to get 125.
Yeah.
But when you cut them out of the process, because you have a history of executing on your own, and so you lean on that as a reason to do it by yourself, that can fundamentally say, like, to tear apart the foundation of a team and partnership.
Yeah, I came from a manufacturing background. And I used to work for this guy, Joe Jenkins, right? And I learned a ton from Joe. Joe's a character from Alabama. Old football player, used to block for Brett Favre. And, we developed a pretty good friendship. And one thing Joe used to talk about was the differences between deviation and improvisation.
Okay.
Right. And so in the manufacturing process, a deviation is very much like a detour.
Yeah.
You're traveling down a path and you get to a place where the bridge is out. Well, you have to deviate from the plan, right? You take a detour, but when you take that detour, the goal is to eventually get back on the road, but on the other side of the bridge, right?
Yeah.
So we would deviate. I know a lot of times people hear the word deviate and they think it's something bad. But a deviation in the process is often very necessary.
Yeah.
But when you start to improvisation, that's very different. That's the bridge is not out, but I just want to do something different. In fact, let me jump down in the water and swim across because I think that's going to be fun. Or
and not even go to the original destination.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quicker. I'm going to improvise. I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to go to the mall. I'm going to go to the outlets.
Yeah.
I'm going to, and so I think that, when you're planning, whether it's your team or your partner, sometimes we need to deviate because things do change.
Yeah.
The kids get older and they create different types of stress. We get older, the money changes, the job changes. Sometimes we have to deviate, but just because we deviate doesn't mean that the end goal has changed. The end destination is still the same, right? We're still going to finish a year with an EBITDA of whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Or our gross margins need to be 17% or more. But we're not going to be able to do just staffing. We now have to do procurement services.
Yeah. So
right?
I think part of the dynamic, the difference is that when you attach the premise of business to when you're dealing with people, like relationship wise, is that the partnership is not the CEO and the employees. You would take the partnership would be, say, the CEO and the shareholders. So your partner in life is more so the shareholders, and you have to create a dynamic of trust. Like it can't just be, it's not just execution. It can't just be, well, he hits these certain numbers. It's, do I trust him that if we put something in place, it'll be followed through?
Right.
Do I trust that this? And so when in our personal relationships, too much improvisation and deviation without communication leads to a lack of trust in the confines of that relationship.
Right.
So it doesn't even matter what the end result is. I now know you will make decisions without communicating with me, regardless of how it ends up.
Right.
You will break team and format to do what you think is best, regardless of how it turns out. And so if we get hung up on the end, well, yeah, I know I did what I was going to do, and I know we planned that, and I know we talked about this, but I still made it here. I still got this done. Yeah, but I don't trust you anymore to do what you say you'll do.
Right.
I don't trust you to keep the team in mind with the plan we came up with. I don't trust that you'll communicate with me if things have changed or things need to be discussed.
That's very interesting because, what I hear is, what's the purpose of us even putting a plan together if you're just going to go off and do whatever the heck you want to do anyway?
That energy would definitely be there.
Yeah. And, I think this is how you start to create sore winners, right? And I know we don't talk about sports a lot, but I was listening to a big breakdown of what's happening with Lamar Jackson, right? The quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens and one of the most dynamic athletes I've ever watched in my lifetime, and he's due to make hundreds of millions of dollars, but there's this whole concern about his improvisation. He's dynamic, we win, but he's creating risk. Yeah. And so because of that, as great as he is, as positive as his results have been and all the accolades, we're having a hard time writing this check because he just doesn't follow the plan like a Tom Brady follows the plan. And people can say, well, he's not a Tom Brady, but you can't argue with success. And so it's just, that's kind of what goes through my mind is, just, it's hard, right? And then as a leader, which I consider myself a leader inside and outside of the workplace, we tend to be so dictatorial that, I look at my business plan every week. Am I doing what I said I was going to do? Have I achieved what I planned I would achieve? And I adjust, right? Okay, I thought we would make X. We made Y. Wow, we're doing better than we thought, right? I give myself a report card, but I probably don't do a great job of pulling my team together and say, hey, guys, the plan's changed.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're not getting where we need to get, or I found a way to get there faster, or this and that. So I think, I'm going to put a lot of personal thought into deviation, improvisation, and the need for communication. I don't want to sound like Jesse Jackson here, rhyming, but, I think that maybe it's not that I don't have a plan. It's just that I haven't communicated the plan, or I'm not communicating the plan to my team.
Yeah.
And because of that, they don't know the play, right? They don't know what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm just like, keep doing what you're doing, because I'm gonna bump you aside if you get out of line, and you'll be back doing what you need to do. But man, I think that's great dialogue, man. I think this gives me a lot to think about. I'm benefiting. I'm hoping, we do this with the hopes of helping people, right? And as I always say on every show, we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, we're not giving any financial, legal, or medical advice, but we're two guys that are sharing our experiences. So, I think this is awesome. Give me something good to close out, man. You always have something powerful on the back end.
I would say if you're in partnership, and whatever that looks like for the individual, and you feel like you're having certain issues or things coming up, you can look at how transparent am I? Self-check. If you're having issues with, how much am I actually discussing with this other person or people? Because if I have expectations upon their result or outcome, how much internal, emotional, or connected information am I giving them outside of instruction? So am I actually speaking to them with what my goals are, why they're my goals, what I envision this outcome to look like? What is their part in this? Are they just cogs in the machine for my personal pursuits? Or is this something that I think that we're building together, and that definitely requires their input? Nice. So, when we look at if things aren't going the way we want, we arguing at home all the time, or why can't you just trust me? Or, well, you don't believe in me, or don't you trust me to do what I said I was going to do? Okay, if I ever have to use any of those phrases, that means that I am not clearly communicating to the other person exactly what it is that's going on, or I don't have a good track record of doing the things that I communicated to the other person.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we're sitting there, when we're working in community, working in partnership, working in relationship, just outside of me, because I'm not talking to me, how much am I? They don't know what's in my head. They only know what they hear from me and what they see. So how much am I communicating to the other person? And then ask them, am I communicating enough?
Wow. That's huge. That's huge. Well, that's great. That's great, man. I think this is always great dialogue. I love this platform. I like that you post some of the videos afterwards. I've been getting amazing feedback. Sometimes I feel like, you wonder, hey man, let's just keep jumping on the phone like we do when we talk. But I do think that our conversations are actually helping people, right? People are listening to them. And it's something positive and productive. So something I failed to do, and I got to, remember my production. We didn't do much introduction today. So I'm going to do a quick, just kind of a quick introduction of, I'm James Morris. I'm president and CEO of TMC Workforce Solutions. I also manage a coaching business, morrismotivation.com. Working with some great clients right now. I think some of my clients are watching, so it's kind of cool. But we're working on them to help them in their businesses and help them to move forward positively. So that's why I'm here. I got my brother on. Talk to me, brother.
I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant with a practice based around a DISC assessment. So I primarily work with people who are trying to get just a good starting point, or if you're having specific challenges in life and you're trying to make a transition from A to B, about understanding ourselves. My premise that I work under is self-awareness without judgment. So let's just get a clear understanding of how we are, who we are, how we interface with people in life, and then using that information to put us to where it is we want to be and what we want to do.
Yeah, and so that's awesome. Those of you that are listening, Jermaine has an awesome business. We do DISC assessments. What I really enjoy is that not only am I a fan, but I'm a customer. He supports my company. and we started getting a funny echo. But
yeah, it was on my end. I'm sorry.
Oh, he supports my company. He's come in and done disc assessments with all my leadership team, and I think all my secondary supervision team, and it has done wonders in improving retention. It's helped us to make sure that we, create better fits between who we hire and the manager that they go work for. So, Jermaine Morris at J Morris CEO. I certainly encourage you all to reach out to him. These assessments will help you on the personal side. They can help you on the professional side. Just better understanding of yourself. Like you said, self-awareness without the judgment. And I've done the DISC assessment, and I was a little nervous about how spot on it was. So it was excellent. So, hey, we're going to be here this time next week. I don't know if I'll be in Houston or Georgia, or we're working with some new clients across the country. So wherever I'm at, we're going to log in. We're going to try to keep coming up with interesting topics that are helpful to people. And, give us some feedback. If there's something that you all want to talk about, something that you would like for us to explore, hit us up. You'll probably see this running on Facebook and some of the other platforms. I think we're working on something so that it's running on Instagram. So, hey, thank you all for joining, brother. I'll talk to you. I'm sure I'll talk to you before our next broadcast.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But we're gonna get together next Thursday and do it again, and hopefully help somebody. So, hey, we'll see you, and thank you, everybody.
Yeah.